Greetings, friends. In the online right, there's a guy called Z-Man. I respect him. He's intelligent. You should all follow him at the Z blog on X. He has a website where he publishes blog posts very regularly. He's also an atheist, if I understand correctly, although he doesn't really push atheism. In his post here from December 23rd, 2024, he linked to a blog post he did, and I don't really remember the subject matter, but he was just mentioning evolution on the sidelines. It wasn't really about evolution, but he mentioned the word a few times, and it was more about the development, how things can change in America or over history, or how Christianity in America may have changed. That's not really the Darwinian sense of evolution. But I used this as an opportunity to see what he thought, because he was discussing Christianity in the article. I saw it as an opportunity. So I said to him, Christians dispute evolution because it's a contrary religion and it's also false. The Big Bang, abiogenesis, which is the creation of life from dead or inert matter, endless morphing of creatures, all unobserved, and therefore outside proper scientific investigation. The things evolutionists believe are as fantastical as any pagan cult. I didn't get screenshots of everything, but he said, explain the dachshund. And I was like, what's a dachshund? And I was like, is that a kind of dog? And I was like, yes, it's a kind of dog. I looked it up and I'm like, okay, so that's a common route we can go, because there's all these different kinds of dogs, so they must have evolved from what? From a worm? From a fish? I don't know. Where do you get all of that from bringing up dachshunds? I don't know. But it depends on, what does the word evolution mean to you? When you ask these people, okay, what does this imply as a story about where we come from? It doesn't seem like a lot of them want to commit. They want to just say, well, it's things changing little by little, but I don't think they want to affirm that your ancestor is a fish. But how is that not evolution to say we came from fish or we came from some simple organism? That's implied in the story. Yes, people say, oh, well, there's this theory of evolution or that theory of evolution. Oh, Darwin's ideas have been expanded upon, or things that Darwin believed are no longer believed. But stuff came from stuff. These things took millions of years, and that just explains the animal kingdom and the human species today. All of these unobserved things, how could you not describe that as a morphing of creatures? This would be an opportunity to know what Z-Man thinks. Is he going to affirm that? I said to Z-Man, the dachshund came from a wolf. All dogs are essentially wolves. And by endless morphing, I meant his notion that dogs came from something that weren't themselves, like a fish, for example. To which he responded, so you think evolution happens just by a set of rules of your choosing? Well, I don't know. Tell me what the rules are, man. Like, tell me, where did we come from and where did species come from? Because if that's not what the theory of evolution is about, then what the heck are we talking about here? And I said to him, like, funny, whenever they taught evolution, meaning in school and in public education, they would talk about single-celled organisms becoming fish, and then these creatures become amphibians, and then those transform into mammals, etc. That's what I'm trying to address, but Z-Man didn't want to address that. So I don't understand why he's saying by set rule of my choosing. I said that you could breed dogs over time to make different varieties, but they're all essentially canines. And it's not even clear that you could breed dogs into becoming related canines like bears or other animals that are in the canine family. I don't even think you could do that. They likely all came from wolves, but that's by human breeding, and they remain that basic model. They remain the canine model. You could not breed a canine into a feline. You could not breed a wolf into a fish. You could not breed a wolf to have wings. You could not breed any new appendage or new organ onto an animal. You would never accomplish that, and that has never, ever, ever been observed. And the discussion that people will go to is about bacteria turning into a slightly different form of bacteria because it can now resist an antibiotic. It takes laboratory conditions to produce this bacteria, which is still just bacteria. That's the weakest example that they can do to say that they could observe evolution occurring. Otherwise, it's completely impossible to observe. And I honestly don't know enough about the bacteria to talk about it in depth, but it's sketchy and it's wacky, and I don't think it means anything. That's not going to show that you can have a cat become a fish. That's not going to show that you can have a bear become a whale. That's not going to show that you could have a pig grow wings and fly. That's not going to show that a worm could learn to sing like a bird. That's not going to show that your ancestor, your great ancestor to the power of 537 was a mushroom. It's not going to show that. I think it's false anyways. But I invite more discussion on the bacteria question. Enlighten us all. And even some Christians have yielded and say, well, there's microevolution. Darwin's finches, there's some evolution, but it occurs within certain bonds. But even that is speculative. Darwin didn't actually observe the finches changing their beaks. It was inferred that they came from a common ancestor. You can't actually do scientific tests because that requires actually interacting with matter in real time, the way chemists can test soil, the way forestry people can cut open trees and look at them. With evolution, the things you're trying to show are necessarily beyond your observation. Everything about them is inferred. And the immense timescales fit the assumptions of evolution, that we would need these vast timescales in order for random mutation to produce these new species. To bring up the case of the dachshund is to show that human breeding can have an effect on some creatures, but it has stark limits, and it has never gone beyond the barrier of what a canine is, and specifically a dog. We could not, as far as I know, breed any wolf into a bear, because once you start getting to that level, the bone structure is different. We're talking appendages, we're talking significant bone structure, new bones, entirely different dimensions of bones, and the gait of an animal. Those things is when we really try to traverse the boundary between species. And then someone was saying, well, all the wolves and dogs could breed together, so they're species. And then Z-Man said, well, you could breed a horse with a donkey. You can breed different species together and produce offspring, he was saying so. And I agree that there is no good definition. I don't know if you would agree with this, but there is no good definition of species. That's the thing, it's up in the air. Because you can have breeding between species that produces offspring, but I would point out, not really viable offspring. If a lion and a tiger produce offspring, it could live. Conceivably, it might be able to produce offspring, but probably not. A liger, they're not happy animals, let's put it that way. And animals that mutate are not happy animals. They usually die out. They don't pass on their genes because they're mutants. And he said to me in response, so you think that one day a she-wolf gave birth to a litter of dachshunds, and we then had dachshunds and then cocker spaniels and bulldogs and so on. Funny how this morphing works. I don't understand because, humans bred these things over time. I don't know if it took 100 years or several centuries, but we created these dogs over time. Like, what's the point here? Are we talking about these dogs becoming something which is not a dog? Are we talking about dogs getting purple fur? Dogs losing all their fur and growing scales? Are we talking about anything like that? No. But apparently that's not evolution. That must be something else. So I told him, well, humans bred them. You're avoiding the point, which is that no human intervention or natural process could produce new bone structure, new appendages on a dog, or any feature that wouldn't be consistent with its basic model, its basic pattern. That's the best you can do with defining a species. It's just a basic pattern of an animal that involves appendages, bone structure, gait, And then you had other Christians or maybe non-Christians arguing with me. Someone said to me, "So you believe in a little evolution, but not too much evolution?" No, I mean, because you could breed horses and goats and sheep into different forms and different sizes, that doesn't mean you can produce totally new species out of them. That's never been observed. So, in that sense, I don't believe in any evolution, if that's what you mean by evolution. And really, maybe if you mean changing the form of animals and you call that evolution, maybe in just the tiniest little bit of evolution, but not with a capital E. Not with a capital E. And like I said, we don't even know if microevolution is real either. That's just a question mark. And then I'm just asking one of these guys, so you believe your ancestors were fish? I mean, why is that an unfair question in the discussion of evolution? No one really wanted to address that. No one wants to bite the bullet on that. If you believe in evolution, then you should be willing to say, yeah, my ancestor was something. Like, again, it's my ancestor to the power of 10 million or whatever. But I accept that my ancestor was not a human. They were like a single-celled blob. At one point, maybe like a newt. That would be your great to the power of 5 million grandpa. But he's your grandpa, right? You want to honor your ancestors. If you're a pagan, maybe if you're not even a pagan, but you believe in honoring your ancestors. You have to honor the great battles that your forebears fought in the spore wars, because your great grandfather was a mushroom, and he had to compete in the spore wars with a different kind of fungi and then mutate himself into producing different chemical processes that one day turned into a bug. And then that was like your great to the power of 3 million grandfather. That was a bug that came out of a fungi, I'm comparing it to a fungi. But that was the spore wars. You have to honor your ancestors who were fungi or something like it. You know, I'm asking the questions that we can't say, we don't know, but so you have to fill in the blanks. Are you telling us a story about where we came from, or are you not? Oh, I'm just saying this is some process that we can see happening. Well, no, you can't really. You can't even see this process occurring in the current world. One guy was saying that he was Christian, but he believed in this idea of proto-apes becoming humans. He just didn't see any conflict with that. I was asking him, well, if you believe that man is made in the image of God, at what point did this proto-ape become made in the image of God? At what point? Because in the creation story, in the Christian narrative, there was a particular moment when God made man. That was it. It wasn't described as a long process. He said, well, you can ask that question, but how do you say when the fetus is a human? Because a pig fetus and a human fetus, or an alligator fetus, I forget what he was bringing up, the example of some other animal. He's saying that fetus and a human fetus is exactly the same. Well, to be fair, we know. We have the knowledge. We may not empirically be able to demonstrate, but we know that one is a human fetus. We know where it came from, and we know where it's going, and it has the potential. It's still human. Doesn't matter that it looks like a alligator fetus. Doesn't matter that it looks like a pig fetus. We share much in common with the created world, with other animals. Many of our organs resemble animal organs. That's how God made all creatures on planet Earth. We use similar hardware, at least within certain categories. But we're not animals. We are not. So the fact that two fetuses look the same as they're developing, that has nothing to do with the potential that God gave one and did not give the other. There's an essence that is set in stone, metaphysically, figuratively speaking, and that goes for what the human is, and that goes for what the animal is. Here's one guy, I think this guy's Catholic. He said to my original comment about evolutionists believing things that are as fantastical as any mystery cult, he says, nope, Catholics believe in the Eucharist, the Bible, Adam and Eve. At some point God intervened. I'm not sure what that has to do with anything. And then he says Catholics believe as evolution as a science and not a religion. Well, we can believe in doing science and doing the scientific method, but I don't know what he means by Catholics believe in evolution. as a science. No, there's science and then there's evolution. Evolution is called a theory, but as I pointed out, it's not even properly said a theory either. And I said to him, yes, some Christians mistakenly accept Darwin's ideas, but even Orthodox and Protestant non-denominational fundamentalists, who otherwise would be totally different, we can even agree that the evolutionary story is completely contradictory to the Christian teaching. The Catholic guy said to me, nope, there can be no contradiction between scientific truths and theological truths. But he's again assuming that evolution is a true theory. He's just taking that for granted. You can't observe evolution. It is speculation about inferred events that occurred long ago. And he says, fossils? Dinosaurs? And I said to him, besides requiring biased interpretation, fossils haven't ever shown one species becoming another. They just show fully formed animals. I mean, we can argue about who's really in the position of authority to say. But dinosaurs are mostly frauds and imaginative creations. Even if some dinosaurs existed, it doesn't show where they came from to simply dig up the bones of one of these animals. Oh, therefore it must have been 65 million years or 100 million years old? Hasta luego, amigos.